that they make with a clay wheel.
Yeah, well, it's all done with the stylus.
So stories. Like, was it just to keep society together, or was it to retell a very? There was rainfall in the Nile Valley, so now you're back like 9,000 years. Like, one of the more interesting things about hieroglyphs and the interpretations of it is that the ancient hieroglyphs, the ancient version. So when you go there and you're in the presence of these things and you try to put yourself back into that time period, like, have you ever tried to think, like, what was the motivation to make something as great as the Pyramid of Giza, the Great Pyramid?
People definitely want to make their mark, right?
Oh, but that's a mark that just doesn't even make sense.
There's something to that. I mean, if you think you're in the ways that in my limited ability as a teenager, to investigate these things, I think that Christianity is true.
A deep search for meaning and truth that if you are confident, and if
To a certain degree, I mean, I went to university with full intention of going into the police force. I did and that was my goal. And I think I realized.
Why not? Because you like getting to the bottom of things?
It could be.
Because you do. Right?
Yeah. Well,
Wait, someone who spends 21 years getting to the bottom of a religion,
if the things they were saying about the scroll, but then other ones are so fragmentary that we think of speciality as research is in regards to that. So I study paratextual features. We're really going to get dirty today.
Let's get dirty.
Where so you look at the features of the manuscripts.
Aim to have a vast knowledge of this. To help me out. Tell me what's going on. When I sit down and talk to you, tell me what's going on. And if you don't
do things. And so part of his motivation is like the Latin isn't reflecting, at least at the point that Latin had developed, and no one can read Latin, and they're all using the Vulgate.
Wow.
Oh,
it's
man.
so crazy. I mean, I'm so glad I wasn't there and a part of it, but so fascinating because you can see this guy who is a gay porn star and a hypnotist.
So wild.
Take a bunch of really lost people and send them down this.
And you can pinpoint those things. So this is a field called textual criticism, where we do this with all ancient documents. Like the Bible this does in particular readings. And so we know for a fact there's an entire 7 actually 2nd century.
Things like ancient Sumerian
what you're looking at there is probably a cultural remembrance of something that did take place. And so you have these adjacent cultures who they're existing within this framework of the ancient Near East, and you're seeing these kind of but there are obviously parallels between that because these are both ancient Near Eastern stories, and they're products of their day.
In the right? We're talking about thousands of years ago. And these people took great time and I think that's also what's important is we have to try, as difficult as it might be, to put our minds in the context of people who lived in a time where most people were illiterate. The origins of language, we have to, and then still, there's massive debate. There's a whole website called SitchingsWrong.com.
Yeah.
But he's the most fun.
He's fun. I'm not convinced he could do Sumerian.
Really? It's like, how? What are you guys using? And imagine what society is like.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Egypt was
something as great as the Pyramid of Giza.
People definitely want to make their mark. Things like crazy.
Yeah, see, that's what the pause look like.
Right.
That's a disaster. You have to go back to when there was rainfall, and this is not representative of an actual history.
Enemy spotted!
This is
Up there!
Yeah, numbers are tricky.
Really? Come on!
You have that, you have the Sumerian king lists,
Watch out!
which have people living thousands of years, hundreds and thousands of years too. And
a 13-month calendar. What was the logic? The collapse of the Mayan civilization, the collapse of the Aztec civilization, like the accounts that these priests had of visiting these Aztec markets and how incredible these people from Rome come to visit the Mayans. They're like, this is unbelievable. Brought their cooties and killed off a giant swath of the population. Because that is a constant and never-ending search. And that even today, with as much information as we have, you can pick up your phone and ask them, you know, when was Nero? So many versions of that all over the world, and it just, the search for our origins is one of the purpose that it served to have these myths, legends, stories. Was it just to keep society?
To adopt certain words in Sumerian, but they're still Sumerian words. It's like pizza.
Can you put that back up again, Jamie? So this was in 20. Can you show me that image that you showed me before?
And in the archaeology section, I have that one on. I don't know what is that? I make one for you.
What a great website you've got.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
It's awesome. It's so detailed.
Said that they wanted the plowboy to be able to read the Bible and know his God was the priests. And so that was their motivation, is that they're like, largely because they just wanted to read the Bible. But that was a big motivation behind Luther, because he's like, I'm going to translate this thing to German. Because part of his what we call the Protestant Reformation was that he read the Bible into Greek. Because there was a guy named Desiderius Erasmus trying to figure out the entirety of human knowledge up until that point, like Renaissance man, right? So Desiderius Erasmus is like one of the last of the Renaissance men, because he knows that the Pope is going to get wind that he's producing Greek New Testaments, and the Church is using the Latin, and he's risking his life. So if he dedicates it to the Pope, maybe the Pope will take it easy.
Did it work?
Yeah, it did.
Nice, little flattery.
Yeah, see, it goes a long way.
Well, that's happy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the ways my wife and I bond, we have very different tastes in movies, but there's enough crossover.
Isaiah, what you were telling me is so fascinating that 1,000 years later, you have the exact translation of this at a time where most people were illiterate.
Right? Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's only really been recently that we have the levels where we do this with all ancient documents. Flesh out. Field of textual. We even do it with Shakespeare with the different copies, because if Beowulf, we only have one copy of Beowulf, and so whereas if you look at some of these ancient writers who are talking about how you should write biography, they say if there's nothing in their childhood that's something, say like Jesus' birth, or Luke tells a story when he's 12, Jesus, but they wouldn't have had any problem with leaving out large portions of someone's life if it didn't contribute to what the
people who lived in a time where most people were illiterate, and you're telling these parables, you're telling stories as an oral tradition, and that they have a different mindset in terms of
which is going to kill them and include me too, because they're going to help me out. That's going to help me out in the afterlife.
You need slaves in the afterlife. You're a pharaoh.
Yeah, of course they do.
Why not?
Yeah.
So, Khufu's pyramid, what's the timeline that he's in power?
Statue.
Let's attack them! Enemy spotted!
So they say,
Up
right?
there.
And the gods come out of the created world, and that there's this narrative of the battle that takes place where some gods fight against other gods, and the world around us that we see and like human beings are the end result of this battle. And so they would read this on every Babylonian New Year, and one of the main themes was basically that like it's all chance, it's all a random mistake. You were created without purpose and intention because Tiamat gets destroyed, and she's the god that you come from. And then you read Genesis chapter 1, and it says, in the beginning God creates the heavens and the earth, and he makes it good. And there's this idea that like that's counterculture. A lot of ancient Near Eastern cultures believe that humans were created in the image of God, but that humanity in general is created in the image of God. And this idea of the Imago Dei, that's why you're different. Like, why are you different from all the animals? Because you're given something like that. And it kind of subverts the expectations of your day, and getting literature that when Jonah says that he's crying out from the depths of Sheol, it's because he's actually dead. And that's one interpretation. But another interpretation could just be that he saw and understood as a person of his day.
I think that this version of ancient primate was
Yeah.
and it was a difficult path to get to. Because people have died that way.
Are you claustrophobic?
No, I'm not claustrophobic. Just normal.
You just
stuff.
don't want to crawl in
I
a
don't want to
cave.
crawl in the middle of the earth into something that's like 11.
The intricacies of Neo-Doranian evolution is not quite explaining some of what's going on. I mean, humanity obviously looks very different today than it did, if we're going tens of thousands of years ago.
Right.
And so,
Might explain it better.
I mean, that area of
Nuts. Nuts. And then you have the James Webb Telescope that's giving us even more data than ever before. And you have to look at all of them and go, wait, why are those things here? How are they there so long ago? Like, what are these red things at the beginning of time? Like, what the fuck is all
the universe is bonkers.
nuts?
Yeah, and I mean, I think we reached the scholarly consensus about the dating of the Gospel of John. It's totally true.
Got one of them.
And it's because of that guy, and because of my academic work where I was telling you, like, in paratextual features, when we look at these, I also made you.
One down.
So this is, I use two different variations of the pyrite. So you have there, where P50 conventions, the spacings of the words, and the way that the size of the margin that we can see, where, you know what's wild is when you actually get the chance, which I have a number of times to actually handle the original documents. And
Wear rubber gloves?
no, you know why? Is that we used to do that, but actually the oils in your hands are, yeah.
Gotta feel bizarre.
I was at the 2 summers ago. I was at the University of esntm.org. So if you click digital manuscript collection, so they go around the world and they try to digitize all the existing New Testament manuscripts to preserve them. And so you can actually see there on the side, you can click, well, I want to look at a papyri, and you can go different conventions of, yeah, so ideally you want to look at them, and because these are such